At Thanksgiving, my mother tapped her glass with that practice smile she always used whenever she wanted everyone else's attention on Lily. "Your sister's wedding was beautiful," she announced, then turned to me and said, "So Kat, when's yours?" Laughter floated around the table while my dad pretended the turkey demanded urgent surgery and Lily watched me with that careful stare she de-perfected. I set my fork down and said, "I already had mine, you got the invitations." The room froze, the silence so sharp it felt like it sliced through the air itself. When my father whispered, "We never received anything," I reached into my bag, and that's when everything they'd hidden finally rose to the surface. Growing up, I learned quickly that my family worshipped symmetry, perfect pictures, perfect milestones, perfect stories polished for other people. And in every one of those stories, Lily was always the centerpiece. I wasn't bitter back then. I simply believed that was how families worked, one child shining while the other stepped aside. By the time we were teens, it wasn't a pattern anymore. It was a fully built system. My mother curated Lily's life like a showroom display, dance classes, cheer tryouts, and a hallway lined with her victories. Whenever I had moments of my own, like science ribbons or my college acceptance, Mom would smile and ask me to wait because she needed good light for Lily's newest headshot. I didn't break their rhythm, I adapted to it. I learned to watch, anticipate, disappear when it kept the peace, and reappear only when needed. Quiet survival became my specialty. Moving to Seattle reshaped me in ways I didn't expect. Leaving home for work wasn't rebellion, it was oxygen. I built a life with tall windowed mornings, research notes everywhere, and shirts that carried the scent of the coffee Ethan brewed daily. My job analyzing water and environmental data never impressed the type of people my mother tried to impress, but it mattered to me. It made sense, had purpose, and didn't require performance. And Ethan saw me clearly in ways my own family never even tried to. He listened, remembered details, and showed up without being asked. His family noticed me too, not because I performed, but because I existed. The first time his mother hugged me, she held me like she meant it, not like she was crossing a task off a list. She asked about my work and remembered specifics. His father did the same. They weren't flawless, but they were present, and presence was a luxury I'd never had. So when Ethan proposed one foggy June morning by the water, I said yes without hesitation. We didn't want a spectacle, we wanted something real. A small coastal chapel, a handful of people who truly knew us, a ceremony that felt honest instead of staged. The one thing I wished for, quietly but stubbornly, was for my parents and Lily to show up. I designed the invitations myself and mailed them early with signature required, so nothing accidentally vanished. I triple-checked addresses and refreshed tracking numbers like a ritual. When everything marked as delivered, I finally let myself breathe. Then the silence settled in. No calls, no texts, not even a lukewarm congrats in the family chat. Weeks passed, the wedding passed, and still nothing. I created excuses to protect myself. Maybe the mail mixed up. Maybe they were planning something. Maybe they were waiting. But deep down, something colder took root. Someone didn't want those invitations seen. The silence after the wedding didn't just linger, it expanded, creeping into every corner of my days. At first, I waited, telling myself people get busy and eventually someone would reach out. But days turned into weeks, and the quiet grew intent, heavy, deliberate. I tried to reach them. My mother sent me to voicemail. My father replied with a polite "I'll call later" that never came. The family group chat no longer displayed my name. I wasn't removed loudly, I was erased quietly, one night while washing dishes. I tried telling Ethan it was probably a glitch. But even I could hear the truth leaking through my voice. Ethan dried his hands, studying my face with quiet concern before asking, "Kat, did they ever respond to the invitations at all?" I shook my head and whispered, "Not even once." He didn't accuse or pressure, he simply said, "Then let's check the logs." He guided me through the email system, clicking through tabs I never even knew existed. And then the access history appeared, cold and blunt. One invitation notice had been opened, deleted, and permanently erased with a timestamp that left zero room for error. It wasn't a glitch. It wasn't forgetfulness. Someone had deliberately wiped it out so no one would ever see my messages. The worst part was that I didn't need to guess, I already knew exactly who did it. I could picture Lily in our childhood kitchen, flipping through mail like she owned the house's communication system. She had always been the gatekeeper, the one Mom trusted with calendars, the one Dad asked to sort bills, the one who screened calls and decided which ones mattered. If something entered that house, it passed through Lily first. The more I thought about it, the more every piece clicked into place like a puzzle I didn't want to solve. Her own massive September wedding was coming, 350 guests, a designer gown, and an identity built entirely on attention. Even my quiet, simple wedding had the potential to pull the spotlight ever so slightly away from her. And Lily had never been good at sharing anything that sparkled. Still, I needed proof. So I opened the tracking receipts I'd archived for packages, for signatures, my name as the sender, their address as the destination. One signature jumped out at me instantly. Lily's handwriting curved across the screen with a boldness that tightened something deep in my throat. She hadn't forgotten. She hadn't misplaced them. She intercepted them deliberately so no one would even know my wedding had happened. Ethan gently touched my arm, grounding me. "Kat, what do you want to do?" he asked softly. I didn't have an answer because anger wasn't what rose in me, it was something sharper, older, a wound reopening with painful clarity. "What do you do when people you love choose not to see you?" Thanksgiving was approaching fast. I almost skipped it completely. I almost let them go on pretending I didn't exist. But pretending was exactly how this whole mess had been allowed to grow. So I made a different choice. I went, and I carried the truth with me. Thanksgiving looked perfect from the outside: white linens, polished silver, a candle flickering like it belonged in a magazine. But the moment I stepped inside, that old familiar tension wrapped around my shoulders like a coat I never wanted. Lily posed for photos near the fireplace, her husband adjusting her hair like they were filming a commercial. My mother fussed over the turkey while bragging to guests about every detail of Lily's September wedding. My father poured wine with empty eyes, like he was already exhausted by the holiday. Not a single person asked how I'd been. Nor did anyone mention the wedding they'd all supposedly never heard about. I sat directly across from Lily, who avoided my eyes with the precision of someone hiding a secret. Silence can be its own performance, and she'd always been exceptional at performing. Dinner unfolded like a script: compliments about Lily's dress, her venue, her guest list, her endless connections. Every word was a reminder that they had shown up for her repeatedly without hesitation. And they hadn't bothered to acknowledge a single detail of my own life-changing day. Then my mother tapped her glass with that bright, brittle smile. "Sister's wedding was wonderful," she declared, locking eyes with Lily before turning to me. "So, Kat, when's yours?" Laughter scattered around the table, and even the carving knife in my father's hand paused midair as if unsure which side to support. Lily stared at her plate, frozen to carefully, and that alone told me everything. For years, I would have swallowed the jab, laughed softly, and let the moment pass like it didn't sting. But not this time, not after everything they had buried. I set my fork down gently and said, "I already had mine. 6 months ago." The air left the room like someone had opened a vacuum. I waited a moment before adding, "You all received invitations." Fork stilled, eyes widened, and my mother's plastered smile collapsed instantly. My father blinked slowly as if he wasn't sure he'd heard what he thought he heard. Across the table, Lily's expression didn't move an inch. That stillness, that silence was the tell. She knew exactly where this was heading, and she had no way to stop it. "Kat," my father said carefully, "we never got any invitations." The lie slid out effortlessly, a habit they'd mastered over years of selective memory. And instead of hurting, it just clarified things. "I figured you might say that," I replied, my voice steady. I reached calmly into my bag and placed my phone on the table, the screen glowing against the candlelight like a blade. Every pair of eyes snapped toward it. This was the line I'd never crossed before, the boundary I'd never drawn. The moment I refused to let them rewrite who I was or what happened, as my thumb hovered over the screen. The truth gathered inside me like a rising tide, and when I finally tapped it, the moment the screen lit up, the atmosphere shifted into a tense stillness, like the breath before a storm crushes the shoreline. The receipts lined up clearly, for deliveries, for signatures. All marked received. I zoomed into the first one and angled the phone toward the table so everyone could see the bold, looping signature: Lily's. My mother's hand flew to her mouth while my father leaned in as if proximity would soften the truth. Ryan stiffened beside her, his eyes darting between the screen and his wife like he was seeing a stranger. Lily stayed frozen, her expression fixed as if carved from stone. My heartbeat thudded through my fingertips, but my voice stayed unnervingly steady. "These were delivered on April 23rd, I said, every invitation signed by Lily." Silence followed again, but this time it wasn't shock, it was revelation. Dad whispered that there must be some mistake, clinging to denial like it could rewrite the facts. I slid to the next screenshot, showing the postal tracking log stamped with confirmations and required signatures. "All delivered," I said softly, "and all intercepted." My mother shook her head, repeating no like it could undo the evidence. She insisted Lily would never do something like this, the line she'd rehearsed my entire life. I told her gently to stop defending what she refused to see, and the truth hit her hard enough to silence her. Ryan finally spoke, asking Lily if she had signed for those packages. Lily blinked mechanically as though she was rebooting her expression, claiming she didn't remember. She insisted she sometimes picked up the mail but never saw any invitations. I stayed silent because sometimes silence exposes more than accusations ever could. My father pressed again, asking how she didn't notice for packages addressed from her engaged sister. Lily snapped sharply that she wasn't responsible for everyone's mail, and her tone cracked the last of her composure. My mother reached for her, but I told her calmly to let Lily speak. She'd been speaking for years. Lily glared, demanding what I meant, but I ignored the bait. Instead, I opened the final screenshot, the family email log Ethan helped me uncover. I explained that the wedding announcement email had been opened in this house and then deleted immediately. My father's jaw tightened as he asked who had access to the account. Everyone knew the answer before anyone said it. Lily broke quickly, denying she deleted anything, her words tumbling too fast. I asked why her device ID appeared as the one that opened and erased the message. She sputtered excuses, asking why I was attacking her. I told her calmly that I wasn't attacking, I was showing her what she did. My mother pushed again, refusing to believe Lily could sabotage my wedding. I reminded her that she always defended Lily without ever examining Lily's actual behavior. When asked why, I said it plainly, because my wedding was in June and Lily's was in September. Lily flinched like the truth had slapped her across the face. I told her she didn't want anyone discussing mine before hers. Lily accused me of twisting things to make her look bad, but I reminded her she managed that on her own. Ryan stood abruptly, demanding honesty from his wife. She stared at her napkin, shaking, before muttering resentments she'd hidden for years. She said I made everyone feel guilty and small simply by existing, revealing the jealousy beneath everything she'd done. I leaned back and told her she hid my wedding because it didn't compete with her extravagant production. She tried to deny it, but the truth hovered like smoke in the room. Dad insisted they didn't know and would have come if they had. I finished the sentence for him, reminding him of the years they had missed every milestone without hesitation. Mom claimed they did their best, but I told her plainly they did their best only for Lily. Lily collapsed into her chair, unable to defend decades of favoritism. A heavy clarity settled inside me, sharper than grief. I looked at all of them, the people I'd begged silently to see me, and finally said what I'd never dared. I told them I didn't lose my family that night, I simply stopped pretending I ever had one. My mother gasped, saying not to speak like that because it threatened the narrative she clung to. I exposed the story anyway, Lily as the golden child, Dad as neutral, Mom as peacemaker, and me as the problem. Dad whispered that no one ever said I was the problem, but I told him their actions said it for years. Ryan watched, shaken, as the foundation of his marriage cracked in real time. Lily whispered my name softly, fear finally replacing entitlement. I stood and said I was done begging for a place at their table. Done pretending their silence wasn't its own kind of cruelty. Done carrying wounds they refused to acknowledge. Dad tried to stop me, asking to talk, but I said we already were, and this conversation was the last under their terms. Mom insisted they could fix it, but I told her they couldn't fix what they never accepted. I felt lighter as I picked up my coat. Their regret echoed behind me, Lily's sobs, Mom's pleas. Dad's whispered we should have asked, but none of it belonged to me anymore. I told them they didn't miss my wedding, they chose not to see it, and stepped outside. Ethan opened the door before I reached it, reading everything on my face. He didn't ask a single question, just held me until I stopped shaking. His presence was steady, something my own family never mastered. The next morning, his parents welcomed us for a simple breakfast of warmth instead of pity. Helen squeezed my hand and told me I was family because I mattered. Her words landed in a place that had been empty for years. A week later, Lily mailed a long, therapy soft apology I read but didn't respond to. Dad called every few days with small, cautious efforts, and I let him try. He eventually mailed me a wedding invitation he found buried in the garage, his quiet attempt at real remorse. My mother never reached out, and for the first time, her silence felt like clarity instead of loss. I realized family isn't defined by blood but by presence. It's built by the people who show up, who listen, who stay. And sometimes the bravest act is walking away from those who never learned how to hold you. Now in my home, with Ethan cooking and friends laughing in the next room, I finally felt whole. If any of this feels familiar, tell me where you're watching from and share your story below, and don't forget to subscribe for the next chapter.